Hi and welcome to Leitrim Daily. My name is Breffney Early and you are listening to Kiss My Arts here on the podcast. My guest today is a Longford man originally, but has been living and working and writing in Leitrim for the last 10 or 11 years or so. Wayne Denniston, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How would you describe yourself, Wayne? Writer, playwright, actor?
Chancer? No, I suppose playwright with aspirations of acting as well, but not necessarily restricted to stage, but for the last number of years really I've been writing for predominantly stage, but radio as well. So
let's rewind a little bit. I mentioned you have Longford roots. Tell us a bit about yourself growing up and up to the point where you decided to emigrate to Leitrim.
Well, I suppose growing up, when you grow up in a small town and you have notions of being, say, a writer or that, you're not going to get a lot of encouragement, especially back in my era. Not making myself sound too old, but definitely it wouldn't be like it is today, where there's a lot of opportunities in the arts or where it's more welcomed. So that was kind of difficult. So I moved away quite young in life, moved around the country a bit, going aimlessly, but always writing, but never seen as something that would be viable as a life, something you can make money of or have a career anyway. So I just kind of really fell into it by accident. Then I wrote a radio play. There was a call for a radio drama, and I entered something in and took off from there really. And then I just thought, well, I'll give it a few years, see what happens, and thankfully it's been working out okay.
What was the experience up to that point? Like, was it just a random, I've never written anything before, I'll stick something in, or had you been writing?
I'd been writing, there was a lot of ideas that I even really kind of bring back now, or can develop them from the past. I always had the notion of writing plays or whatever, but I didn't see it feasible really. There really wasn't that kind of encouragement to do that. So really it was just by chance, a complete fluke, and luckily it took off for me. What
was that project, do you remember?
I was just a call for a radio play. I submitted something and ended up being broadcasted on radio on Shannon and Ocean, I think, Ocean FM, and won a PPI Award. And that gave me the encouragement then to keep on writing further for a few radio plays, but then I gravitated towards writing for stage and been doing that since.
Because I'm intrigued by this original play. So that play was set in Leitrim. When are we talking, by the way? When would that have happened?
2007, I think, 2008, around that time. It was to do with boy racers and that kind of culture, and rural pubs closing down, so not at all relevant today, but
it kind of sounds like it is still relevant today.
Yeah, it seems to be a bit now with the continued closure of pubs and that, but and the drink drive and whatever, that was kind of the big theme in it, and it resonated with audiences, so I was happy with that. And like I said, it gave me the encouragement into, I'll stick it out, see what happens, and here I am.
So that was 2007, and then in 2008 you made the decision to move to County Leitrim.
Yeah.
What was the reason behind that? Just fell in love with the place?
Yeah.
Or you fell in love?
Of course, I had to say that. Yeah, of course I did, yeah. I just liked it really, and it was good and peaceful to write, so I said, why not,
So what has that relationship been like with yourself in County Leitrim? Has it helped you to develop over the last 11 or 12 years?
Yeah. I tend to... I love listening to people and meeting different characters. And Leitrim has a very kind of unique way about it, I find anyway. And I draw a lot of inspiration from people and the way they speak, the rhythms of their speech, and hopefully I can translate that in my work.
Now, one of the events we talked about beforehand, before we turned on the microphones, was a play you did called Oul Horny. Tell us a bit about that.
Oul Horny was a stage play I wrote back in 2014, and it was kind of about the whole Garth Brooks fiasco, but it was really, we caught lightning in a bottle with it. It was about this lonely guy in rural Ireland, rural Leitrim, and he's visited by a guy who was canvassing for the elections at the time, an independent, and who was also a big Garth Brooks fan. And this guy, Packy, the main character, he had tickets that he had won for Garth Brooks, but he had no interest in it, and he began to bargain with this guy in a very unusual way to get the tickets off him, and it ends up being quite chaotic, but it really connected with audiences because of how topical it was. I remember when it was staged up in the dock here in Carrick, someone stopped me afterwards and asked had I written it the night before, where it was just like, it was so irrelevant. Like,
Is that how relevant it was, or how poor the acting was?
Well, we'll say the right. No, the acting was good.
The acting was top
I'll own
notch.
that one. Yeah, no. Yeah, it was so on the button, but complete fluke. I mean, you if you try to do it, you make a balls of it. But thankfully, it just worked out brilliantly. And we toured it around. Like, we did theatres, we did pubs with it. We just brought it everywhere. It was a two-hander, and yeah, it really connected just because of that. So,
had you written it before the whole thing blew up into the will they, won't they saga?
Yeah, we had to slightly alter the ending because we were literally watching the news one day to figure out which ending we were going with. So we're watching the 6 o'clock news. We're on stage at 8:30, so I had a very little rehearsal time, but yeah, I made it exciting. It was a great experience, really. And after that, you just want to keep writing stage plays, or not for the actors. I don't know, but I enjoyed it anyway.
What's the difference between performing a stage play at a venue like the Dock that's not quite purpose built, but purposely redesigned at least to be a venue, and in a pub or community hall?
I think there's more fear in the community or pub. I presume anyway. It was for me on the background looking in, but I can't imagine what it's like for the performers. But I think they like to feed off the adrenaline, really, and yeah, it adds an extra dimension to it. And I think the audience is kind of more on board because it's not something you would normally see in a pub.
Yeah, I can just imagine, like, in any country pub, the guy up at the bar who's had one or two or six too many.
Well, yeah, it happened in one show, of course. There was a scene where, a moment in the play where the guy is going off on one, and someone arrived drunk and thought it was an actual fight and began to participate, but luckily we shooed him away.
Yeah, you need to have fairly strong security for events like that.
Yeah, so, but all part of the experience.
The last time we spoke to you, you were just about to put on a rehearsed reading of your play, the Arignaramus,
The Arignaramus.
Arignaramus, which I struggle with saying every single time because it's so simple. It's oh God, now I've done it again.
It's Ignoramus
and Arigna, of course.
No offence to Arigna, or
so it's basically about an Ignoramus from Arigna, right?
Well, it was a cruel name.
They don't exist, do they?
Not at all. No, no. It was a cruel nickname put upon the character Conan in the play. It was given to him by his teacher in school, headmaster, who was very cruel and punishing of him for not knowing his sums and whatnot. So.
There's something about a dead chicken or a stuffed chicken.
Yeah, he spent his evenings talking to his dead chicken, Erlingus, who's the only company for him, really. So,
your imagination must be scary at times.
It keeps me occupied anyway. Like the odd sleepless night, but yeah.
What's happening with the Ignoramus now?
I've been doing a lot of editing on it since the reading for Culture Night. You want to get it in good shape. I tend to write really long, and so I'm just trying to get into an acceptable length for the performer to perform. And
that was a one-man show with Conor Lambert as
Conan
Conboy, or the Ignoramus. We shouldn't call him that.
The Arignaramus.
Yeah. What's the relationship there with yourself and Conor? Does he do stuff like this for you all the time, or was it just something he said? No. Did you have him in mind when you wrote the piece?
I had him in mind because he's a very kind of forlorn face, I think. I thought that suited Conan in my head anyway. So he agreed to do it, but it was a good experience so far because it's very collaborative, the two of us. He brought a lot to it, and he actually can see things in the character that he could open up more that I hadn't seen. So it was a nice experience in that way. It's nice because when you see a really good actor in motion, like, or going through the motions of the acting, it's really something to behold. I've always admired like very good actors, and yeah, that's something I enjoy very much.
What's it like watching a really good actor repeat back this scene that you've written and maybe put a different slant on it that you hadn't expected? Do you get a bit protective of your vision of it, or do you allow them to kind of go in their own direction and see where it ends up?
You have to allow them to go their own direction, really, I find, because it's never what you expected. It's never what you hear in your head, I find, anyway. It's like if you read a novel, it's made into a film. You're never going to be fully happy with it because it's not how you heard it or saw it, but it still could be good. So that's really what happens. You have to let them run with it, but not to the extent where it's a different piece. But thankfully that hasn't happened. It's just a great interpretation, I find anyway, and so far the response has been very good.
What are you working on at the moment?
At the moment, I'm writing a one-man show called The Two Virgins, which I will be performing next year myself. So looking forward to that. A little bit scared, but a little bit excited.
Have you got a venue or dates for that yet? Or?
It'll be the late summer, autumn next year, and venues to be announced.
And what stage are you at with the writing?
Again, it's the editing. It's this thing of writing is rewriting. It's done, but it's at a length where you want to pare it back and get in shape for presenting to an audience.
And in terms of, I suppose, going forward with that, tell us as much as you can, really, without spoiling the play. Tell us a bit about what the storyline of that play is going to be.
It's kind of a companion piece to the Arignaramus, in that it deals with a character who is isolated, even though this character is more around people than the Ignoramus. The character is called Proudest. His family is originally from Carrigallen, but they've moved to Carrickenshaw when he was a kid. And he suffers with his mental health, and he's just renting an apartment over a pub. He's moved out of home after the dad decided to kick him out. And he's kind of the butt of many jokes in this pub, and he decides he's going to emigrate back to Carrigallen. This is his big plan to get a new life where no one will know him. But then again, he decides, maybe I won't, maybe I'll do something else which will take him down a darker path. So without giving too much away, there is a lot of humour in it, hopefully, but also there is kind of a pathos and a darkness to it as well.
That seems to run through a lot of your work in terms of the Ignoramus. It's a one man on his own, solitary. Yeah. This sounds something similar to... Is that something you take from your own life or from people around you?
It's interesting. I think it's more from... I really like being alone.
So, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, so I really enjoy my own company. I always have done. And I find it fascinating because I do see, particularly men, you see certain men that just have to talk to you and they have to keep talking and they need company. And there's this thing of no man's an island. I guess it's true. I'd be unusual in that way. But it fascinates me. And I just wanted to explore that because, like I said, it's not something that I can entirely relate to, but as an outsider looking in, I think I can bring something to it. I think that's where the kind of the humour comes from, which can be kind of caustic, I suppose. But it's really because I'm not that guy, I suppose. Thankfully, not yet.
No, you're safe enough for a couple of more years.
Yeah, hopefully.
What else is ongoing in your world at the moment in terms of work?
I'm also doing a one-act play, which I hopefully will be co-producing with someone in the new year. It deals with the homeless situation at the moment, but and hopefully in a unique way, which will draw attention to that horrible situation, really. But it'll be more about that in the new year, hopefully. Around the spring, I'll have an announcement about that.
Now, in terms of being a full-time writer in County Leitrim, like, do you have other source of income, or are you 100% reliant on this?
It's really this. Really, you have enough to keep the wool from the door, but you're not going to be buying a new house yet.
So, someone who's out there maybe who likes to write, or who has ideas, or maybe has a book, they feel they have a book in them or a play in them. What are the steps that they can take? What are the supports that you've had, maybe that they could also replicate and take advantage of in terms of giving them that first or second step on the ladder?
Well, in terms of theatre, I suppose I would just get out and do it. Think in terms of what can you physically produce. I mean, there's no point writing a play with 12 characters and 3 set changes or something like that. You want to get something which doesn't necessarily be a one-man show, but got 2, 3 small cast and a simple location. But there's a lot of local talented actors. Get them together. Just send your script out to people. Hear your script read out loud is a great help, because then you can see actors work, but you can also see, does this actually work? Because you can write, what you think is great dialogue, but an actor might be going, I can't say this. It's like Harrison Ford said to George Lucas, you can type this shit, but you can't say it. So there is that true element to it.
Worked all right for Lucas though in the end.
Worked out, yeah, but. Yeah, exactly. But that's generally, I would just get out and do it as much as you can. In terms of writing a book or that, again, like I said, it's just about rewriting. You gotta get used to that. You're never gonna write a masterpiece first go, so just keep at it, really. And I think the ones who succeed are the ones that really don't have a fallback plan. I mean, you're either all in or not. I think the ones that just want to do it, you'll get there eventually.
So you're saying you nearly need to have to do it, go all in and see where the chips fall?
Exactly, yeah, really. That's really it. It's scary, but hopefully it pays off, yeah. If not, well...
Come back and talk to you about it.
You can talk to a dead chicken or something, yeah.
But in terms... Very true, touche. In terms of what is available in the county with the arts office in Leitrim County Council, have you had any dealings with them over the years in terms of supports or in terms of advice or courses that might be available to people?
Just basic, really. There's been some funding in the past, but in general, I think where I don't really fit the mould in terms of the work I do can be kind of a bit off the wall, I suppose, and a bit... I call my production company close to the bone. I think it can be a bit close to the bone for some people, and doesn't really fit into the classic mold of what a player should be. So I really have to rely on myself and what I can raise myself to get this stuff on. Explain
that a bit more to me in terms of what I suppose people think people want versus what you offer.
Well, like growing up, I know nothing about plays, to be honest. Like people say, who's your favourite playwright or inspiration? I don't know any of them, and it's not out of disrespect or anything. Just growing up, I was more into music or films, and theatre was kind of like for, I suppose, the middle class. And I think there is still that kind of stigma. I don't think it's true, but there is that feeling that it's more snooty and it's not for your general audience. But I always liked the concept of theatre. I thought if I could make a play that's as entertaining as a film, then I think I could get a whole new audience in. So I don't know if I'm succeeding in that, but that's kind of the plan with it.
Well, you're still at it a dozen years later, so you can't really complain.
No, I can't. No, it's been good so far. So yeah, hopefully I'll keep going.
What's been your biggest or proudest achievement of that period of your life?
I suppose just getting the play on.
Because a lot goes into that, though, because you're basically on your own. Like, yeah, there's venues there, but when it comes to actually producing what people see, if you're writing it or acting in it or both, what are the steps that are needed to get from an idea in your head onto paper, into the hands of the actor, and onto stage?
You need a lot of persistence. Well, first of all, for an actor, I think you need a good script, because without that, you're lost.
That's where you come in, though.
That's hopefully where I come in. But yeah, it's once you have the groundwork of that, if you have a good script, a good story, and then a good actor that comes in, you're halfway there. But I think to answer your question, what's my proudest moment, it would be when you first hear an audience laugh. Because when I put on the Oul Horny first, I really thought no one would laugh at this. And it was kind of like that, I suppose, that fear that a comedian would have, where you tell a joke and no one laughs. And they were laughing straight away, and they kept laughing, and I was just like, wow, thank God.
Is that a relief?
It was a relief. Unreal. I mean, I was so scared. I actually had an exit plan, literally, that I was going to run out the back door and not talk to anyone. But yeah, they just loved it from beginning to end, and that was a great feeling. When people respond to something that you create, it's like a drug. You want to chase that high all the time.
Do you find yourself self-editing when you're writing in terms of, I can't say that because potentially that person's going to be there, or this person's going to be there, and I don't want them to think that of me? Or
no, because I think you should be a bit apprehensive about people seeing your work, because I think it should be very personal. That people should say, you got that from me, or that's based on so and so. You really have to be honest with yourself if you want to write at a proper level. You have to have that kind of honesty, because I think that's what people respond to with me so far, is that it's characters they can relate to. But if you start kind of toning it back, or someone like self-censoring, it's not going to work.
Have you had that conversation with people that you've taken little snippets off, or maybe some episodes you've had with people, and they come back and say, that's us, that's the conversation we had?
Oh yeah.
Do you warn them beforehand it's going to be in there?
No, it's like little Easter eggs for them, and I love.
Is the reaction always good, or can it be negative?
So far, I've never put so and so's extramarital affair on stage, but I don't think I ever go that far. Maybe down the road, but there's nothing like that would cause major offence to anyone. I think it's more like a tip of the hat to them, like, thanks for that. And
that could be kind of a scary thing if a friend recognises an episode, then all of a sudden their partner is cheating on them. It's like, are you trying to tell me something?
Someone said, no one wants to own up to that character is based on me. Not the guy that talks about dead chicken. No, that's not me. No. I don't know.
Is it based on someone you know, though?
Yeah, no, Conan would be an amalgamation of various different people I've met over the years.
So you know someone who's talked to dead chicken?
No,
Or
that part is pure.
that's fictional.
That's pure me. Yeah. Just
That's just you.
Yeah.
That's himself.
No, I like. I see a lot of these. Well, I haven't seen them, but I know of these one-man shows where they just talk on stage. I just thought, like, make them talk to something, So I made Erlingus the friend of Conan in the play, and that works better, I find, because otherwise, I don't know. It just takes me out of it when you just have a guy or a woman on stage talking for no reason.
But you can create a second character without actually anything animate.
Of course, yeah. I mean, Erlingus is kind of like the co-star of that play. Certainly when Conor performed it, it was like there was two guys on stage.
It's like, what was it Wilson? Tom Hanks had in Castaway.
Oh, the beach
volleyball.
Ball. Yeah, volleyball.
So it basically allows you to kind of talk to somebody and almost interpret what they're saying to things, without actually having to pay a second actor, which at this level of drama is quite beneficial as well.
I mean, like cut corners every way you can, like make them talk to a volleyball. Yeah.
Do you think about that when you start to write a play? Is the production of it almost more important than the content in some respects?
Well, you have to be wary of both. I mean, like, luckily, I've never really thought of the 20 character play. I don't want to do that because inevitably you're going to have characters who are like one dimensional. The fewer characters, the more you can develop them, and the more they can interact with each other. But I think theatre should be intimate. So if you have an enormous cast, which is kind of the fashion back in the day, have these big productions, big characters, big character cast size. Nowadays, that's kind of, it's not really the fashion. So, like you said earlier, people looking for tips on how to get a play on, write something that's feasible, like then you get on that you can do yourself, and that isn't going to cost a bomb.
Now, I know you're involved in a whole lot of stuff kind of into the new year. We haven't actually mentioned the project about the homeless crisis in the country at the moment. You're working something in respect to that? Yeah,
it's a 200 play. Again, it's two women on stage, but it will draw attention to that particular situation, and hopefully it humanises someone living on the streets, because I think that's one of the problems is that we you hear on the news the homeless. It's almost like they're non-human, and that's a massive problem. I mean, these are human beings living on the street at Christmas. It's just nuts. It just, well,
it's nuts any night of the year, but particularly this time of year, and the weather and the temperatures.
I mean, dark at 4:30. I mean, it's
a miserable existence.
Yeah, and enough's enough, really. So I'm not going to make any kind of inroads on solving it, but if I can use my abilities to draw attention to this in some way, then hopefully it'll help in some way.
Absolutely fantastic. What's next for Wayne Denniston? Will we be seeing you on the big screen or on televisions? Is that an ambition or a goal, or are you happy where you are?
Unless I'm on Crime Call, I won't be on TV anytime soon. But no, the next one will be...
Is there something you want to confess to?
Not at this point, no. Okay. Next episode.
Fishing for an invite back already.
I'll give you the exclusive.
Sold.
The Two Virgins will be next, and they'll be late summer, early autumn next year.
Excellent. Well, listen, Wayne, thank you so much for coming in, having a chat with us.
Yep.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and the best luck with the Two Virgins, and I suppose everything that's coming ahead for you down the tracks. This, of course, is Leitrim Daily, and specifically it is Kiss My Arts here on Leitrim Daily. Thank you very much for joining. My name is Breffney Early, and I will be back tomorrow with the Sports Roundup Show. Talk to you then.